You know what's fascinating? We live in a world obsessed with security. We have smoke detectors in our homes that scream at the first hint of danger. We install security systems on our cars that howl if someone even breathes on them wrong. We buy insurance policies for everything we own, our houses, our vehicles, our jewelry, even our pets. We protect our phones with cases thicker than medieval armor, guard our computers with passwords more complex than nuclear launch codes, and build walls around our hearts higher than ancient fortresses. But here's the irony that should keep you awake at night. While we're busy protecting everything we can touch, see, and count, most of us are walking around spiritually naked, completely exposed, utterly defenseless. We're like someone who spends thousands on home security but leaves the front door wide open. We guard our material possessions while leaving our souls, our peace of mind, our families, and our futures completely vulnerable to whatever wants to attack them. And then we wonder why life keeps hitting us with one crisis after another. We scratch our heads and ask why trouble seems to follow us around like a lost puppy. We question why some people seem to glide through life while we stumble from one disaster to the next. The answer isn't luck, fate, or chance. The answer is protection, specifically spiritual protection that most people don't even know exists, let alone how to activate it. What if I told you there's one ancient prayer that acts like the ultimate spiritual protection system? Not just protection, but healing, provision, peace, and divine favor, all wrapped into one powerful declaration. A prayer so potent that when you speak it with genuine faith, it creates an invisible shield around your entire life that nothing can penetrate. A spiritual fortress that doesn't just keep bad things out, but actually attracts good things in. And here's the part that might surprise you. You don't need a theology degree to activate it. You don't need perfect faith or a spotless past. You don't need to speak ancient languages or perform complicated rituals. You just need to understand what you're really doing when you pray Psalm 91 and why this particular combination of words has been healing people, protecting families, and transforming lives for over 3,000 years. I know what you're thinking. You've probably heard about Psalm 91 before. Maybe someone told you it was powerful when you were going through a rough patch. Maybe you even tried reading it a few times when things got really bad and you were desperate enough to try anything. Maybe you bookmarked it on your phone or wrote it on a note card and carried it in your wallet. But did anyone ever tell you that there's a specific way to pray it that activates its full power? Did anyone explain why certain words in this prayer literally reprogram your spiritual DNA? Did anyone teach you that when you pray this psalm correctly, you're not just reading ancient words or hoping for the best, you're issuing divine commands that the universe must obey? Because that's exactly what you're doing. Every single verse in Psalm 91 is a declaration of divine protection. Every word is a key that unlocks a specific type of spiritual covering. Every phrase is a command that marshals heavenly forces on your behalf. And when you understand what each verse actually means and how to pray it with intentional faith, something extraordinary happens. Your entire atmosphere changes. Fear loses its grip on your throat. Anxiety starts to dissolve like sugar in hot water. That constant worry about what might go wrong begins to fade because you finally understand that you're covered, you're protected, and you're safe in ways that go far beyond human understanding. Let me ask you something deeply personal. How many nights have you laid in bed staring at the ceiling, worried about your health, your family, your future? How many times have you felt like you were fighting battles you couldn't win, dealing with problems that seemed bigger than you, facing enemies you couldn't even identify? How many moments have you wished you could just feel truly safe, truly protected, truly at peace? Not just for a moment, but as your normal state of being. You're not alone in this struggle. In fact, the reason you're reading this right now isn't coincidence. Your spirit recognizes something about this message that your mind hasn't caught up to yet. You're being drawn to understand divine protection because it's time for you to stop living defenseless. It's time for you to activate the spiritual covering that's been available to you all along, just waiting for you to claim it. Number. The hidden technology of divine protection. Here's what most people don't understand about Psalm 91, and this misunderstanding costs them everything. It's not just a beautiful poem about God's protection. It's not just comforting words to read when you're scared. It's spiritual technology. It's a precise formula for creating an atmosphere of divine safety around your life. It's the operating manual for a protection system that's more sophisticated than anything human engineering could ever create. When King David wrote these words, he wasn't just expressing poetic thoughts or sharing religious philosophy. He was a warrior king who understood both physical and spiritual warfare better than almost anyone in history. He was recording the exact frequency of faith that attracts divine intervention. He was documenting the precise spiritual laws that govern protection, provision, and supernatural covering. Think about it this way. If you want to tune into a radio station, you have to dial the exact frequency. You can't just randomly twist the dial and hope for the best. You need the specific wavelength that connects you to the signal you want to receive. If you want to connect to Wi-Fi, you need the exact password. Close doesn't count. Similar doesn't work. You need the precise combination that grants you access. And if you want to activate divine protection, you need to speak the exact words that resonate with heaven's frequency. That's what Psalm 91 is. It's the spiritual frequency of complete protection. It's the divine Wi-Fi password that connects you directly to God's protective power. It's the radio station that broadcasts safety, healing, and supernatural covering 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. But here's where most people make a critical mistake that neutralizes the entire prayer before it even begins. They read Psalm 91 like it's information instead of activation. They approach it like they're reading a newspaper article instead of issuing divine commands. They treat it like inspirational literature instead of spiritual legislation. The difference is everything. When you read it as information, you might feel inspired for a moment. You might think, "That's nice," or "I hope that's true for me." But nothing actually changes in your life because you're operating as a consumer of content rather than an activator of power. When you pray it as activation, you literally shift the spiritual atmosphere around your life. You're not just hoping for protection, you're commanding it. You're not just wishing for healing, you're decreeing it. You're not just wanting peace, you're declaring it over your life with the authority that God has given you as His child. This distinction between reading and activating is crucial because it determines whether this psalm remains beautiful words on a page or becomes a living force that transforms your reality. Information entertains you. Activation transforms you. Information might make you feel better temporarily. Activation makes you better permanently. Number. The science behind sacred words. Let's talk about what actually happens in your body, mind, and spirit when you pray this psalm correctly, because the effects are both scientifically measurable and spiritually profound. The impact begins the moment these words leave your lips and continues working in ways that most people never realize. First, there's the immediate physical response. Your nervous system, which has been on high alert scanning for threats and preparing for danger, begins to calm down. Your heart rate stabilizes and moves into what scientists call coherent heart rhythm patterns. Stress hormones like cortisol and adrenaline decrease, while healing hormones like serotonin and dopamine increase. Your blood pressure normalizes. Your muscle tension releases. Your breathing becomes deeper and more rhythmic. This isn't just spiritual mysticism, it's documented science. When you speak words of faith and protection over yourself, your brain actually rewrites its threat assessment patterns. The amygdala, which is constantly scanning for danger and triggering fight or flight responses, begins to calm down. Instead of constantly preparing for attack, it prepares for blessing. Instead of always expecting the worst, it starts expecting good things to happen. Your immune system strengthens as stress decreases. Your sleep improves because your mind isn't racing through worst-case scenarios. Even your digestion gets better because your body finally feels safe enough to properly process nutrients instead of constantly preparing for emergency. When you live under the covering of Psalm 91, your physical body operates from a place of rest rather than stress, healing rather than survival, strength rather than depletion. Then there's the profound mental response. Those racing thoughts that keep you up at night start to quiet down. The what-if scenarios that torture your mind lose their power over you. That constant anxiety about the future begins to dissolve because you're not facing the future alone anymore. You're covered, you're protected. You have divine backup that never sleeps, never gets tired, and never abandons its post. Your mind starts to operate from peace instead of panic, from faith instead of fear, from confidence instead of confusion. You stop mentally rehearsing disasters that might happen and start envisioning the blessings that are coming. Your thought patterns shift from defensive to creative, from survival to growth, from scarcity to abundance. But the spiritual response is where the real miracle happens, and this is the dimension that science can't fully measure but can certainly observe the results of. When you pray Psalm 91 with genuine faith, you're not just talking to yourself or reading ancient words into empty air. You're activating spiritual laws that govern protection, healing, and divine intervention. You're calling angels into assignment over your life. You're establishing a protective boundary that dark forces cannot cross. You're literally changing the spiritual climate around you from vulnerability to invincibility. Think of it like creating a force field that operates in dimensions beyond what you can see with your physical eyes. Just because you can't see radio waves doesn't mean they're not real. Just because you can't see Wi-Fi signals doesn't mean they don't work. And just because you can't see spiritual protection doesn't mean it's not actively working in your life when you activate it through prayer. Number. The precise method of activation. Now, let me tell you exactly how to pray this psalm for maximum healing and protection, because there's a world of difference between reading it and praying it. There's a vast distinction between hoping it works and knowing it works. The method matters because activation requires intention, and intention requires understanding. First, you need to understand that when you pray Psalm 91, you're having a conversation with the God who created the universe. You're not talking to someone who might help you if he's in a good mood. You're not pleading with a distant deity who may or may not be listening. You're talking to someone who has already promised to protect you, who has already committed to your safety, who has already assigned his angels to watch over you. This isn't begging. This is claiming what's already yours. This isn't hoping for favor. This is exercising your rights as God's child. Start by finding a quiet place where you won't be interrupted. This could be your bedroom, your car, your office, even your bathroom if that's the only private space you have. Hold your Bible or phone or whatever you're reading from, and before you begin, take 3 deep breaths. With each breath, remind yourself that you're about to enter into conversation with divine power. You're about to speak words that carry the same authority they've carried for thousands of years. You're about to activate protection that has shielded kings and commoners, saints and sinners throughout history. Begin by saying something like this: Father, I come to you now claiming the protection and healing promised in Psalm 91. I speak these words not as mere reading, but as declarations of faith over my life, my family, and my future. I activate every promise in this psalm over my circumstances right now. Then start with verse 1, but don't just read it. Declare it. He who dwells in the secret place of the Most High shall abide under the shadow of the Almighty. Stop right there and think about what you just said. You're declaring that you live in God's secret place. You're stating that you dwell under His shadow, His covering, His protection. Feel the weight of that declaration. You're not hoping to be protected. You are protected. You're not wishing you could hide from life's storms. You are hidden in the safest place in the universe. Continue with verse 2, and again, make it personal and powerful. I will say of the Lord, He is my refuge and my fortress, my God. In Him I will trust. Don't rush through these words like you're reading ingredients off a cereal box. Let them sink in. You're declaring that God is your refuge, your fortress, your safe place. When you say these words with faith, you're not just making a statement. You're creating a spiritual reality. You're establishing a protective covering over your life that nothing can penetrate. As you continue through the psalm, remember that every verse is a promise, and every promise is meant to be claimed. When you read about being delivered from the snare of the fowler, you're being delivered from traps and schemes set against you. When you read about not being afraid of the terror by night or the arrow that flies by day, you're commanding fear to leave your life. When you read about 1,000 falling at your side and 10,000 at your right hand but it not coming near you, you're establishing supernatural protection that defies natural explanation. Number. The transformative power of consistency. Here's something powerful that happens when you pray this psalm consistently, and I mean daily, not just when crisis hits. Your faith begins to grow not because you're trying to believe harder, but because you start seeing evidence of protection in your daily life. You begin to notice things that would have happened to you but somehow didn't. You become aware of accidents you should have had that mysteriously avoided you. Illnesses that were trying to attack your body suddenly can't get a foothold. Dangerous situations that could have harmed you mysteriously resolve themselves. People who meant you harm find themselves unable to carry out their plans. This isn't coincidence. This isn't luck. This isn't positive thinking creating positive outcomes. This is the psalm working exactly as it was designed to work. This is spiritual protection manifesting in physical reality. This is what happens when you align yourself with divine promises and activate them through consistent faith. Let me share a story that illustrates this perfectly, and I've seen variations of this story hundreds of times. A woman I know was diagnosed with a serious autoimmune condition. The doctors gave her a grim prognosis and recommended aggressive treatment that would compromise her immune system even further. The side effects were almost as frightening as the disease itself. Instead of falling into despair, she decided to fight this battle on two fronts, medical and spiritual. She followed her doctor's recommendations, but she also decided to pray Psalm 91 every morning when she woke up and every night before bed. Not just read it, but pray it with absolute conviction that every word was true over her life. She would declare, "No evil shall befall me, neither shall any plague come near my dwelling." She would speak healing over her body and command the illness to leave in the name of Jesus. She would thank God for the healing that was already taking place, even when she couldn't see evidence of it yet. 3 months later, when she went back for follow-up tests, the doctors couldn't find any trace of the disease. Her immune markers were completely normal. Her inflammation levels had dropped to the optimal range. The specialists called it spontaneous remission and said they'd never seen anything like it. She called it Psalm 91 protection. She knew exactly what had happened, even if the doctors couldn't explain it in medical terms. But here's what makes this story even more remarkable. During those 3 months of intensive prayer and faith declaration, other areas of her life began to transform as well. A legal situation that had been dragging on for years suddenly resolved in her favor. A family relationship that had been broken for decades experienced miraculous healing. Financial provision came from unexpected sources. It was as if the protective covering she activated over her health extended to cover every area of her life. This is what happens when you understand that Psalm 91 isn't just about physical protection, it's about comprehensive coverage. It creates a spiritual atmosphere around your life that attracts blessing and repels harm in every dimension: physical, emotional, financial, relational, and spiritual. Number. Addressing the doubts that sabotage faith. Now, I need to address something that might be going through your mind right now, because I've heard these doubts from thousands of people, and if we don't deal with them, they'll sabotage your faith before you even begin. You might be thinking, but I've prayed before and didn't see results. Or, what if I don't have enough faith for this to work? Or, what about all those good people who had terrible things happen to them? Let me tell you something important that might change everything for you. This isn't about the strength of your faith. This is about the faithfulness of God. You don't need perfect faith. You just need sincere faith. You don't need to believe without any doubt. You just need to believe more than you doubt. The power isn't in the perfection of your belief. The power is in the promises themselves. Think of it this way. When you flip a light switch, you don't have to understand electrical engineering for the lights to come on. You just have to flip the switch. When you take medicine, you don't have to understand the molecular structure for it to heal you. You just have to take it as prescribed. And when you pray Psalm 91, you don't have to understand all the theological implications for it to protect you. You just have to pray it with sincere faith and let God do what God does best. Your doubt doesn't cancel God's promises any more than your fear cancels the sunrise. God's faithfulness doesn't depend on your performance. His protection doesn't require your perfection. His love doesn't fluctuate with your mood. You're not earning protection through perfect faith. You're claiming protection that's already yours because of God's character, not your credentials. As for good people experiencing terrible things, that's a deep theological question that deserves more space than we have here. But I will say this, living under divine protection doesn't mean you'll never face challenges. It means you'll never face them alone. It means that even in the valley of the shadow of death, you fear no evil because God is with you. It means that what the enemy means for evil, God works together for your good. It means that you may go through the fire, but you won't be burned. You may walk through the flood, but you won't drown. Protection doesn't always mean prevention. Sometimes it means preservation through the storm. Sometimes it means strength in the struggle. Sometimes it means peace in the pressure. And sometimes it means miracles that defy explanation. But here's where consistency becomes absolutely crucial, and this is where most people fail to see results. You can't pray Psalm 91 once and expect lifetime protection. Just like you can't eat one healthy meal and expect permanent health. Just like you can't exercise once and expect lasting fitness. Just like you can't say, "I love you" once and expect a relationship to thrive forever. Spiritual protection requires spiritual maintenance. It requires daily declaration. It requires consistent activation. This isn't because God forgets about you if you don't pray for a few days. It's because you forget about His promises when you don't regularly declare them. It's because your mind defaults to fear when you don't consistently feed it with faith. It's because your spirit needs regular reminders of whose you are and what you have available to you. The good news is that it only takes a few minutes each day. The investment is small, but the returns are massive. Most people spend more time worrying about their problems than it would take to activate protection against them. They spend more energy being afraid than it would require to walk in faith. Number, creating your daily protection routine. I want you to establish a routine that makes this psalm a non-negotiable part of your day, like brushing your teeth or checking your phone. Start your morning by praying it over yourself, your family, your home, your workplace, your travel, your decisions, your relationships. End your evening by thanking God for His protection throughout the day and declaring His continued covering through the night. When you face challenges during the day, and you will, pull out this psalm and remind yourself of who you are and whose you are. When fear tries to grip your heart, speak these words out loud and watch fear flee. When anxiety attempts to overwhelm your mind, declare these promises over your thoughts and feel peace return. Here's something beautiful that happens when you make Psalm 91 a regular part of your life. Something that transforms not just your circumstances, but your entire approach to living. You stop living defensively and start living confidently. You stop expecting bad things to happen and start expecting God's goodness. You stop being surprised by protection and start expecting it as your normal experience. You develop what I call divine confidence. Not arrogance, which assumes you're entitled to blessing because you're special. Not presumption, which takes God's grace for granted. But divine confidence, which is the quiet assurance that comes from knowing you're loved unconditionally, covered completely, and protected perfectly by the Most High God. This confidence changes everything. It changes how you walk into rooms. It changes how you handle stress. It changes how you make decisions. It changes how you treat other people. When you know you're protected, you don't have to protect yourself through manipulation, control, or defensive behavior. When you know you're safe in God's hands, you don't have to create safety through worry, anxiety, or fear-based planning. Understanding each promise in detail. Let's break down the specific promises in this psalm and what they mean for your daily life, because each verse contains multiple layers of protection and blessing that most people miss completely. When verse 3 says you'll be delivered from the snare of the fowler, it's talking about much more than just physical traps. A fowler is someone who catches birds using hidden snares and deceptive baits. In your life, this represents protection from hidden traps, secret schemes, and subtle attacks that you might not even see coming. It covers workplace politics designed to sabotage your success. It includes financial schemes designed to rob your security. It encompasses relationship manipulations designed to break your heart. You're protected from snares you don't even know exist. When it mentions the noisome pestilence, it's talking about diseases, infections, and health problems that try to attach themselves to your life. But it goes beyond just physical illness. This includes mental health attacks like depression and anxiety. It covers spiritual attacks like discouragement and despair. It encompasses relational infections like gossip and betrayal that try to poison your connections with others. When it speaks of the terror by night and the arrow that flies by day, it's covering both obvious dangers and hidden threats. Terror by night includes not just physical dangers in the darkness, but also the fears, worries, and anxieties that attack your mind when you're trying to sleep. The arrows that fly by day represent sudden attacks, unexpected crises, and problems that seem to come out of nowhere during your normal daily activities. The promise that 1,000 may fall at your side and 10,000 at your right hand, but it won't come near you, is one of the most powerful verses in the entire Bible. It's saying that you can be surrounded by chaos, crisis, and catastrophe, but you'll be in a bubble of divine protection. You can be in the middle of a pandemic and stay healthy. You can be in a dangerous neighborhood and remain safe. You can be facing economic collapse all around you and still prosper. You can be surrounded by family dysfunction and maintain your peace. This isn't about being lucky or having better circumstances than other people. This is about having supernatural protection that defies natural explanation. This is about walking in a dimension of safety that goes beyond human understanding. Number, the elevation promise. But here's what I love most about this psalm, and it's the part that transforms victims into victors and sufferers into overcomers. It doesn't just promise protection from harm, it promises promotion through difficulty. Verse 14 says that because you have set your love upon God, He will deliver you and set you on high. This means that not only will you be protected from your problems, but you'll actually be elevated because of how you handle them with faith. Your trials become your triumphs. Your tests become your testimony. Your mess becomes your message. The very thing that was meant to destroy you becomes the thing that establishes your credibility and influence. The pain that could have broken you becomes the platform from which you help others. The attack that was designed to take you out becomes the foundation for your greatest breakthrough. This is why some of the most powerful, influential, and effective people you know have been through the most difficult circumstances. Their protection didn't prevent their problems. Their protection preserved them through their problems and then promoted them because of how they handled their problems with faith. When you pray Psalm 91 consistently, you develop an unshakable confidence that attracts blessing and repels harm. People start to notice something different about you. They can't quite put their finger on it, but you seem to have a peace that others don't have. You seem to have a protection that others don't experience. You seem to have a favor that others can't explain. That's not coincidence. That's not personality. That's not luck. That's the Psalm working in your life. That's divine protection, creating a spiritual atmosphere around you that affects everyone who comes into contact with you. Number, advanced prayer strategies for accelerated healing. Now, let me give you some specific prayer strategies that will accelerate the healing power of this psalm and maximize its impact in your life. These are advanced techniques that most people never learn, but they can dramatically increase the effectiveness of your prayers. First, personalize every promise. Don't just read about he who dwells in the secret place. Declare, I dwell in the secret place of the Most High. I live under the shadow of the Almighty. Don't just read about protection from pestilence. Declare, no disease can touch my body. No infection can take root in my system. No illness can overcome my immune system because I am covered by divine protection. Second, apply the promises to specific situations you're facing. If you're dealing with a difficult boss, when you read about being delivered from the snare of the fowler, pray specifically for protection from workplace schemes and office politics. If you're dealing with financial pressure, when you read about dwelling safely, pray specifically for financial security and provision. Third, pray this psalm not just for yourself, but for your family members by name. Lord, I cover my spouse with the protection of Psalm 91. No weapon formed against them shall prosper. I cover my children with divine safety. No harm shall come near them. When you extend this covering to your loved ones, you're not only protecting them, You're involving them in a spiritual atmosphere of safety and blessing. Fourth, use this psalm to establish protection over your home, your workplace, your vehicle, and your finances. Walk through your house praying verses from this psalm over each room. Drive to work declaring protection over your commute. Pray over your bank accounts and investments, claiming divine protection over your financial future. Every time you read about protection in the psalm, immediately apply it to any areas where you need healing. If you're dealing with physical illness, when you read, "No evil shall befall you," declare healing over your body. Speak to your immune system and command it to function perfectly. Address any disease in your body and command it to leave in Jesus' name. If you're dealing with emotional pain, when you read about dwelling in the secret place, declare emotional healing and peace. Speak to your heart and mind, commanding depression to leave, anxiety to flee, and peace to fill every empty space. If you're dealing with financial stress, when you read about being delivered from every snare, declare financial breakthrough and provision. Speak to your circumstances, commanding lack to leave and abundance to manifest. Declare that you are blessed to be a blessing and that God's favor surrounds you like a shield. The psalm is comprehensive in its coverage, which means it's comprehensive in its healing power. It doesn't just protect your body, it protects your mind, your emotions, your relationships, your finances, your future, your reputation, your family, and your destiny. It creates a complete covering that touches every area of your life where you need restoration, protection, or breakthrough. This is why people who pray this psalm consistently often experience what seems like miraculous turnarounds in multiple areas at once. They don't just get healing in their body, their relationships start improving. Their finances turn around, their career takes off, their family dynamics change, their emotional health stabilizes, their spiritual life deepens. The protection becomes a platform for comprehensive transformation. Number. The nighttime protection practice. Here's a specific practice I want you to start tonight, and I want you to commit to doing this for at least 30 days so you can experience the full impact. Before you go to sleep, read through Psalm 91 slowly and deliberately. Don't rush through it like you're trying to check it off a spiritual to-do list. Read it like you're savoring a beautiful meal. Let each promise settle into your heart like seeds being planted in fertile soil. As you read each verse, pause and let it sink into your spirit. Don't just process the words intellectually. Receive them emotionally and spiritually. Let each promise wash over your mind like warm water. Let each declaration of protection calm your nervous system. Let each word of assurance quiet your racing thoughts. Then, as you're falling asleep, repeat verse 4 in your mind. He shall cover you with his feathers, and under his wings you shall take refuge. Picture yourself literally covered by God's protective presence. Imagine his wings surrounding you like an impenetrable fortress. Feel the safety and security of being completely enveloped by divine love. Let that be the last conscious thought in your mind as you drift off to sleep. Instead of falling asleep to worry, fear, or anxiety, fall asleep to protection, safety, and peace. Instead of your last thoughts being about problems you're facing, let them be about the God who's covering you. You'll be amazed at how peacefully you sleep and how refreshed you wake up. When you wake up in the morning, before you check your phone, before you think about your problems, before you start planning your day, spend a few minutes thanking God for his protection through the night and declaring his continued covering throughout the day. Start your day from a place of gratitude and faith rather than anxiety and dread. Number. The daytime defense strategy. When challenges arise during your day, and they absolutely will, don't panic. Don't immediately shift into problem-solving mode. Don't let fear be your first response. Instead, quietly remind yourself of verse 10. No evil shall befall you, nor shall any plague come near your dwelling. Speak this under your breath if you're in public, or out loud if you're alone. Watch how quickly your anxiety subsides when you remind yourself of divine protection. Notice how problems that seemed overwhelming suddenly become manageable when you approach them from faith instead of fear. Observe how solutions start appearing where there seem to be only obstacles. This isn't denial of reality. This isn't positive thinking replacing practical action. This is viewing reality through the lens of divine protection and supernatural provision. This is operating from faith instead of fear, from abundance instead of lack, from victory instead of defeat. When someone speaks negative words over your life, immediately counter them with Psalm 91 promises. When doctors give you a discouraging diagnosis, receive the medical information but also declare divine healing. When financial experts predict economic doom, stay informed but also claim supernatural provision. You're not ignoring reality. You're operating from a higher reality. You're not denying problems exist. You're accessing solutions that exist in the spiritual realm and inviting them into the physical realm through faith-filled declarations. Number, the comprehensive life transformation. This psalm has the power to heal not just your body, but your entire life. It can heal broken relationships by creating an atmosphere of peace around you that makes reconciliation possible. It can heal financial problems by attracting divine provision and supernatural opportunities. It can heal emotional wounds by establishing God's love as your unshakable foundation. It can heal your future by removing the fear and worry that try to sabotage your destiny. When you live under the covering of Psalm 91, you don't just survive your circumstances, you transform them. You don't just get through difficult seasons, you get better because of them. You don't just endure problems, you overcome them and then help others do the same. This isn't just about getting through the night. This is about transforming your life from the inside out. This is about becoming the person God created you to be, instead of the victim circumstances tried to make you. This is about walking in authority instead of living in anxiety. This is about operating from victory instead of struggling for survival. As you continue to pray this psalm, you'll start to notice that your very presence becomes healing to others. When you're filled with divine protection and supernatural peace, that energy transfers to people around you. Your calm becomes their calm. Your faith becomes their hope. Your protection extends to cover those you love. Your peace becomes contagious. Your confidence becomes inspiring. This is one of the beautiful side effects of living under Psalm 91 covering. You don't just get blessed, you become a blessing. You don't just receive healing, you become a source of healing for others. You don't just experience protection, you become a safe place for people who are struggling. People will start seeking you out when they're going through difficult times because there's something about your presence that brings peace to chaos and hope to hopelessness. You become a living testimony of God's faithfulness. Your life becomes proof that divine protection is real and available to anyone who will claim it. Number, the legacy of protection. As you establish this psalm as a cornerstone of your daily spiritual practice, you're not just changing your own life. You're creating a legacy of faith and protection that will influence your family for generations. When your children see you walking in supernatural peace during difficult times, they learn that God is trustworthy. When your spouse observes you operating from faith instead of fear, they're inspired to trust God more deeply. You become a model of what it looks like to live under divine covering. Your example teaches others that they don't have to be victims of their circumstances. Your testimony shows them that supernatural protection is not just available to special people, but to anyone who will claim it by faith. This psalm becomes more than a prayer. It becomes a way of life. It becomes your default response to crisis, your first line of defense against attack, your source of strength in weakness, your anchor in storms, your comfort in trouble, your confidence in uncertainty. Remember, you're not just reading ancient words written by a dead king. You're activating timeless promises made by a living God. You're not just hoping for protection. You're claiming divine covering that's already yours. You're not just wishing for healing. You're declaring supernatural restoration over every area of your life that needs it. Tonight, as you pray this psalm, do it with the confidence of someone who knows they're loved unconditionally, covered completely, and protected perfectly by the Creator of the universe. Your healing starts the moment you speak these words with faith. Your protection is already in place, waiting for you to acknowledge it. Your victory is guaranteed because it's based on God's character, not your circumstances. Psalm 91 is more than a prayer. It's your spiritual insurance policy that never expires. It's your divine security system that never fails. It's your supernatural covering that never abandons you. It's your invitation to live fearlessly in a world full of fear, to walk confidently through uncertain times, and to experience the peace that passes all understanding, even in the middle of life's storms. The protection is real, the promises are true, the power is available. All that's left is for you to claim what's already yours, and watch as your life transforms from the inside out. Your journey of supernatural protection and divine covering begins now.